Kang Doha was lying on his back under a broken plasma conduit when his communicator started buzzing. He ignored it. The machine needed him more than whoever was calling. "Come on, girl," he whispered to the tangle of wires and glowing tubes above his face. "Show me where it hurts." The conduit made a sad clicking sound. Doha smiled. He understood machines better than people. Machines were honest. They broke in logical ways. They didn't play games or expect him to read their minds. His communicator buzzed again, and again, and again. Doha sighed and pulled himself out from under the conduit. He was covered in grease and coolant fluid. His hair was sticking up in weird directions. He looked at the screen and saw 17 missed calls from Station Command. That was unusual. Orbital Station Gemini 7 floated at the edge of human space, where their territory touched the borders of 3 alien civilizations. It was a place for trade, diplomacy, and the occasional bar fight between species who had been enemies for centuries. Doha had worked here for 2 years. He was the youngest senior mechanic on staff, and also the quietest. He called back, "This is Kang Doha." Finally, the voice belonged to Director Mun, head of station operations. She sounded stressed. "Get to Docking Bay 12. Now, bring your Dracari certification." Doha blinked. "My what?" "Your certification for Dracari bioorganic engines. You're the only one on the station who has it. Move." The call ended. Doha stared at his communicator for a moment. He had gotten that certification 3 years ago, mostly because he was curious. Dracari ships used living tissue mixed with metal and crystal. They were beautiful and terrifying and completely different from anything humans built. He had never actually worked on one. Today, apparently, that was going to change. Doha cleaned himself up as best he could and made his way to Docking Bay 12. The bay was in the diplomatic wing, reserved for important visitors. Armed guards stood at the entrance. They scanned his credentials and let him through. Inside, he saw the ship. It was gorgeous, sleek and organic, with curves that looked grown rather than built. The hull shimmered between purple and black, like the scales of some deep-sea creature. Parts of it pulsed slowly, as if the ship was breathing. And standing in front of it was the tallest woman Doha had ever seen. She was Dracari, obviously. The scales covering her arms and neck made that clear, along with the small horns curving back from her forehead and the golden eyes with vertical pupils. She stood nearly 2.5 meters tall, her body muscled like a warrior's. Vestigial wings folded against her back, too small for flight but still impressive. She was arguing with Director Mun. "I do not need a human touching my vessel," the Dracari woman said. Her voice was deep and carried easily across the bay. "This is a temporary problem. I will fix it myself." "With respect, Military Liaison Sial," Director Mun replied, her voice tight with forced politeness. "Your ship's engine core is failing. If you try to leave the station, you'll be dead before you reach the jump point. We have a certified technician who can help." "A human certified in Dracari engineering," Sial laughed. It was not a friendly sound. "Impossible." "Actually," Doha said, stepping forward, "it's not impossible, just rare." Both women turned to look at him. Director Mun looked relieved. Sial looked at him like he was an insect that had wandered into her path. "This is your expert?" Sial asked. "This child?" Doha was 24. He knew he looked younger. He had a round face and wasn't very tall. Next to Sial, he probably looked like a teenager. "I'm Kang Doha," he said, keeping his voice calm. "I received my certification from the Dracari Engineering Academy on Karath Station. I studied under Master Vorn for 18 months. Something flickered in Sial's golden eyes. "Vorn taught you?" "Yes." "He does not teach humans." "He made an exception." Doha didn't mention why. He didn't mention the months of begging, the tests, the challenges Vorn had thrown at him to make him give up. He just met Sial's gaze and waited. Sial studied him for a long moment. Then she stepped aside and gestured toward her ship. The engine room is through the main corridor, third door on the left. Try not to break anything, little human. Doha nodded and walked toward the ship. He heard Director Mun exhale behind him. The inside of the ship was warm and smelled like copper and flowers. The walls had a faint pulse to them like a heartbeat. Doha found the engine room easily. The door opened at his touch, which surprised him. Dracari ships usually rejected unfamiliar hands. The engine core sat in the center of the room, a sphere of crystallized tissue wrapped in metal veins. It was dim when it should have been glowing. Doha knelt beside it and placed his hand on its surface. "Hey there," he said softly, "what's wrong?" Behind him he heard a sharp intake of breath. He turned. Sial was standing in the doorway, staring at him. "You speak to it," she said. "Of course, it's alive, isn't it?" Sial's expression was unreadable. Most humans are afraid to touch our engines. They find them disturbing. Doha shrugged. "I think they're beautiful." He turned back to the core and began his examination. The damage was serious. Some of the neural pathways had burned out, probably from power surges. The crystal matrix was cracked in 3 places. It would take days to repair, maybe a week. "How bad?" Sial asked. "Bad but fixable." Doha stood up. "I'll need to come back every day. The tissue needs time to heal between treatments. You'll be stuck here for about a week." Sial's jaw tightened. "A week." "I'm sorry, I know it's not ideal." "You know nothing, human." She turned and walked away. Doha watched her go. He didn't take it personally. He knew the Dracari were proud. Being dependent on anyone, especially a human, must be difficult for her. He spent the rest of the day gathering supplies and making a treatment plan. When he finally left the diplomatic wing, his sister Yuna was waiting for him. Yuna was 3 years younger than Doha and worked as a medical technician on the station. She had the same round face as her brother, but where he was quiet and shy, she was loud and curious. "I heard you met a dragon lady," Yuna said, falling into step beside him. "She's Dracori, not a dragon." "Same thing as she's scary." Doha thought about it. "She's sad." Yuna stopped walking. "Sad? The giant warrior alien is sad." "I think so. She's been stationed here alone for a long time. No other Dracari on the station. No one who understands her culture." He paused. "Her ship is hurting. She's hurting." Yuna stared at her brother. Only you would look at a 2-meter-tall dragon warrior and think she needs a friend. Doha smiled slightly. "I like machines because they're honest, but people are just machines that haven't told you their problems yet." His sister laughed and shook her head. "You're so weird. Come on, I'll buy you dinner." They walked away together, leaving the diplomatic wing behind. But Doha's mind stayed with the ship and its lonely pilot. He didn't know why, but he felt like something important had just begun. 3 days passed and Doha fell into a routine. Every morning he woke up early, ate breakfast alone, and went to Sial's ship. He worked on the engine core for hours, carefully repairing the damaged tissue and crystal. Then he left, went back to his regular duties, and did it all again the next day. Sial was always there. At first she stood in the corner of the engine room, watching him with her arms crossed. She didn't speak. She didn't help. She just watched, like she was waiting for him to make a mistake. On the second day, she started asking questions. "Why do you heat the nutrient gel before applying it?" Doha didn't look up from his work. "The core responds better to warmth. Cold gel can shock the tissue." "How do you know?" "Master Vorn taught me, and I can feel the core tense up when the gel is too cold." Sial was quiet for a moment. "You can feel that, can't you?" She didn't answer. On the third day, she brought a chair and sat near the entrance. She still watched, but her posture was more relaxed. Once, when Doha cut his finger on a sharp edge, she made a small sound of concern before catching herself. Doha pretended not to notice. The problem was that Sial had nothing to do. Her ship was broken. Her duties as military liaison were mostly ceremonial while she was stuck on the station. She had no friends among the humans and no other Dracari to talk to. So she hovered around her ship, which meant she hovered around Doha. Yuna thought this was hilarious. "She's following you," Yuna said during lunch on the fourth day. "The giant dragon lady is following my shy brother around like a lost puppy." "She's not following me. She's supervising her ship." "For 8 hours a day, while you're the only one there," Yuna grinned. "She likes you." Doha nearly choked on his food. "She does not. She barely tolerates me." "That's how it starts. First they tolerate you, then they can't stop thinking about you, then boom, dragon girlfriend." "Please stop talking." Yuna laughed and changed the subject, but the idea stuck in Doha's head. He didn't think Sial liked him. She was just bored and lonely. But he had to admit he didn't mind her presence. There was something calming about working while she sat nearby, quiet and watchful. That afternoon, something strange happened. Doha arrived at the ship to find Sial sitting in her usual spot, but she was reading something on a tablet. When she saw him, she quickly put the tablet away, but not before he caught a glimpse of the cover image. It was a romance novel, a human romance novel. Doha recognized the cover. It was one of those books with a shirtless man and a woman in a flowing dress. The title was something like Passion Under the Starlight. He didn't say anything. He just started working on the engine core like normal, but inside he was very confused. Later, when he took a break, Sial spoke suddenly. "Human courtship rituals are strange." Doha looked up, sorry. "In these stories," Sial gestured vaguely at her hidden tablet, "humans talk constantly before mating. They share meals, they give flowers, they argue and then apologize. It takes chapters before anything happens." Doha felt his face getting warm. Yes, that's how it works." "Why? Why what? Why do you make it so complicated?" Sial looked genuinely puzzled. "Among the Dracari, attraction is direct. If a warrior wants a mate, she makes her interest known. The other person accepts or refuses. There is no confusion." Doha considered this. "I think humans like the confusion. The uncertainty is part of the excitement." "That sounds exhausting." "It can be." He paused. "How do Dracari show interest?" Sial's scales seemed to darken slightly. Was she embarrassed? A warrior might offer gifts, weapons usually, or the body of an enemy she has defeated, something to prove her strength and value. "That's direct." "Yes," Sial tilted her head. "Have you received such offers from human women?" Now Doha was definitely blushing. "No, I haven't. I've never. I mean, I don't really." He took a breath. "I've been focused on my work." "You have never mated." Doha wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. "No." Sial studied him with those golden eyes. "Strange. You are skilled and dedicated. These are valued traits. Among Dracari, maybe. Among humans, being good with machines doesn't make you popular." He tried to smile. "People find me boring." "You are not boring," Sial said. It sounded almost defensive. "You speak to engines like they are friends. You work with patience and care. You are not afraid of things that frighten others." She stopped suddenly, as if she had said too much. They worked in silence for the rest of the afternoon. That evening, Doha found a human romance novel on his workstation. No note, no explanation. He picked it up and saw a bookmark in the middle. The chapter title was What She Really Wants. He looked toward Sial's ship. Was this her way of trying to understand him, or was she trying to tell him something? He didn't know. Humans were confusing. Apparently, aliens were worse. The next few days were strange. Sial started leaving things near Doha's workstation, a cup of coffee from the station cafeteria, a tool she thought he might need. Once, a small stone that she said was from her homeworld. For luck, she explained awkwardly. Dracari warriors carry them into battle. I'm not going into battle. Engine repair can be dangerous. Doha looked at the stone. It was smooth and red, warm in his hand. Thank you. Sial nodded sharply and walked away, but he saw her glance back before she turned the corner. On the sixth day, Doha noticed something was wrong. Sial was sitting in her usual spot, but she wasn't watching him. She was staring at nothing, her body tense. Her claws were digging into the arms of her chair. Are you okay? Doha asked. Fine. She wasn't fine. Even Doha, who was bad at reading people, could see that. He finished what he was doing and sat down near her, leaving a respectful distance. The engine is almost healed, he said. Another day or two and you'll be able to leave. Good, her voice was flat. Is that not good? Sial was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke, her voice low and tired. 16 months. What? I have been on this station for 16 months, away from my people, away from everything I know. She finally looked at him, and for the first time he saw vulnerability in her golden eyes. Do you know what that means for a Dracari? Doha shook his head. We are social creatures. We need our clans, our families. We need touch and connection and… She stopped, her jaw tight. And, Doha prompted gently. Sial's next words came out like they were being pulled from her against her will. I haven't had sex in 16 months. Doha's brain stopped working. He sat there frozen, his mouth slightly open. Sial seemed to realize what she had just said. Her scales flushed dark purple. Forget I said that, she said quickly, standing up. That was inappropriate, I should not have. It's okay, Doha managed to say. His voice came out as a squeak. It is not okay. You are my mechanic, not my… She made a frustrated sound. I am tired and I spoke without thinking. She turned to leave, but Doha stood up. Wait, he didn't know why he said it. He didn't know what he was going to say next. I understand. Sial stopped but didn't turn around. You understand. Being lonely, being away from everything that makes sense. He took a breath. I've felt that my whole life. Machines make sense to me. People don't. I've never fit anywhere either. Slowly Sial turned to face him. She looked surprised, and something else, something softer. You are strange, little human, she said quietly. So are you, Doha replied. They stood there in the warm, pulsing heart of her ship, two lonely creatures from different worlds, neither sure what to do next. But neither of them wanted to leave. The silence after Sial's confession lasted nearly a full minute. Doha could hear his own heartbeat. He could hear the gentle pulse of the ship around them. He could hear Sial breathing, slow and careful, like she was trying to control herself. He should have left. Any normal person would have excused themselves, walked away, and never spoken of this again. But Doha had never been normal. Do you want to talk about it? He asked. Sial stared at him. What? Talk about what you're feeling. He sat back down on the floor near the engine core. I'm not very good at conversations, but I can listen. I just told you I am starving for physical intimacy, and your response is to offer me talking. Well, yes, Doha felt his face heat up. I mean, I can't offer you the other thing. I haven't, and we barely know each other. But humans believe that talking helps. Sharing burdens, it's what we do. Sial continued to stare at him like he was some bizarre alien creature, which, from her perspective, he was. Your species is very strange, she finally said. I know. Another long pause. Then slowly Sial sat down, not in her chair but on the floor a few meters away from Doha. She tucked her legs beneath her, wings folded tight against her back. She looked uncomfortable, like she didn't quite know how to do this. I don't know how to talk, she admitted. Dracari warriors do not share weakness. This isn't weakness. Among my people it would be. She picked at the floor with one claw, admitting that I am lonely, admitting that I need things I cannot have. A warrior is supposed to be complete on her own. Doha considered this. That sounds exhausting. A small sound escaped Sial. It might have been a laugh. It is. Humans aren't like that. We're supposed to need each other. Needing connection isn't weakness for us, it's just being human. He paused. Maybe it's just being alive. Sial was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. When I first came to this station, I thought it would be temporary. A few months of diplomatic work, then home, but the assignment kept extending. Political situations changed. My brother became ambassador and needed me here as his liaison. She flexed her claws. Rand means well, but he does not understand what this costs me. Your brother is the ambassador. Yes, Ambassador Rand. He is younger than me but more suited for politics. I am a soldier. This is not my world. She gestured at the walls around them. Human stations, human food, human customs. Everything here is soft and strange. Do you hate it? Sial thought about this. I did at first. Now, I don't know. Some things are not terrible. Her golden eyes flickered to him, then away. Some humans are not terrible. Doha felt warmth spread through his chest. Thanks, I think. It was not a compliment. It sounded like one. Another almost laugh from Sial. The tension in her shoulders seemed to ease slightly. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The ship hummed around them, its heartbeat steady and calm. Doha realized that the engine core was glowing brighter than before. It was responding to Sial's presence, to her relaxation. Can I ask you something? Sial said eventually. Sure. Why did you learn Dracari engineering? Why spend 18 months studying under Vorn, who hates humans, to learn skills you might never use? Doha picked at a loose thread on his sleeve. Because it was hard. What? Everything else came easy to me. Human machines, human systems. I understood them without trying. But Dracari engineering was different. It was alive. It required empathy, not just knowledge. He looked at the engine core. Vorn didn't want to teach me. He said humans were too cold, too mechanical. We couldn't understand something that breathed. What changed his mind? Doha smiled slightly. I cried. Sial blinked. You cried. There was a ship, a training vessel with a damaged core. Vorn said it couldn't be saved, that the tissue was too far gone. I worked on it anyway for 3 days straight. When it died, I cried. He shrugged. Vorn saw me. He said anyone who could mourn a machine might be able to understand one. He agreed to teach me after that. Sial stared at him for a long moment. You cried for a ship. I cry for lots of things. My sister says I'm too sensitive. Dracari do not cry. Maybe you should try it sometime. Sial made a sound that was somewhere between a snort and a growl. I am a decorated war veteran. I do not cry. That doesn't mean you can't. They looked at each other. Something passed between them, something Doha couldn't name. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. The door to the engine room opened. They both turned to see Yuna standing there, holding a tray of food. Dinner delivery, she announced cheerfully. I figured you two would forget to eat, so I brought. She stopped, taking in the scene. Her brother sitting on the floor, the giant dragon woman sitting across from him, the strange, intimate atmosphere. A huge grin spread across her face. Am I interrupting something? No, Doha said quickly. Yes, Sial said at the same time. They looked at each other. Sial's scales flushed purple again. Yuna set the tray down and clapped her hands together. This is great. You two should have dinner together. In fact, I was thinking we should all have dinner together. You, me, and I heard Ambassador Rand is on the station too. We could make it a group thing. That is not necessary, Sial said. It would be fun. I do not do fun. Yuna ignored this completely. Tomorrow night, the observation deck. I'll bring food from home. Do you like spicy food? Humans have amazing spicy food. Sial looked at Doha with an expression that clearly said, "Make her stop." Doha shrugged helplessly. When she gets like this, it's easier to just agree. I am not a social person. Neither is Doha. You'll be awkward together, it'll be cute. Before Sial could object further, Yuna was gone, leaving the tray of food behind. Sial stared at the door. Your sister is. A lot, yes, I know. Does she always do this? She wants me to have friends. She worries that I spend too much time with machines. Doha picked up one of the food containers. Are you hungry? Human food isn't so bad. Sial hesitated, then moved closer to take a container. Their hands brushed briefly. Doha felt a small shock like static electricity. This is strange, Sial said, looking at the food. What is? This, sitting on the floor, eating with a human, talking about feelings. She shook her head. I have not done anything like this in years, maybe ever. Is it bad? She took a bite of food and chewed slowly. No, she admitted, it is not bad. They ate in silence for a while. The food was simple station fare, but Sial seemed to find it acceptable. When they finished, she stood and stretched, her wings extending slightly. Tomorrow, she said, the dinner with your sister and my brother. You don't have to come. I know, she walked toward the door, then paused. But perhaps I will. It has been a long time since I shared a meal with anyone. She left. Doha sat alone in the engine room, surrounded by the warm glow of the healing core. Something had changed between them. He could feel it. The wall Sial kept around herself had cracked just a little, and somehow in trying to help her, Doha had opened up too. He thought about what she had said. 16 months alone, no one who understood her, no touch, no connection, no comfort. Doha had never had a relationship. He had never been close to anyone except his sister. But in that moment, sitting in the heart of an alien ship, he understood loneliness in a new way. And he understood that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the only one who had been waiting for someone to see them. The dinner was awkward in the best possible way. Ambassador Rand turned out to be nothing like his sister. Where Sial was tall and muscular, Rand was lean and graceful. Where she was blunt and fierce, he was smooth and diplomatic. He wore elegant robes instead of armor, and his scales were a lighter shade of purple. But his eyes were the same gold as Sial's, and when he looked at Doha, there was sharp intelligence behind them. So you are the human who has been keeping my sister company, Rand said, sipping something from a delicate glass. She has mentioned you. Sial stiffened. I have not. You said, and I quote, the mechanic is acceptable, Rand smiled. From you that is high praise. Yuna laughed. See, I told you she likes you. Doha wished he could disappear into the floor. The observation deck had a beautiful view of the stars. Yuna had brought homemade food, traditional dishes their mother used to make. Rand had contributed a bottle of Drakkari wine, which turned out to be extremely strong. After 2 sips, Doha felt warm all over. As the evening went on, something strange happened. The awkwardness faded. Rand told stories about Sial as a child, which made her growl with embarrassment. Yuna shared embarrassing stories about Doha, which made him want to die. But somehow they were all laughing, even Sial in her quiet way. She once challenged a training master to a duel because he said her form was sloppy, Rand said. She was 12 years old. Did she win? Yuna asked. Of course she won. She always wins. Rand looked at his sister with obvious affection. That is her blessing and her curse. Sial said nothing, but her scales seemed less tense than before. The dinner ended late. Rand thanked Yuna for the food and said something polite about cultural exchange. Yuna dragged Doha away before he could say a proper goodbye to Sial. That went well, Yuna said as they walked back to their quarters. Did it? She laughed. Doha, the scary dragon lady laughed at your jokes. They weren't jokes. I was just telling the truth about the time I got stuck in a ventilation shaft. That's what makes it funny. Yuna punched his arm lightly. I like her. I think she's good for you. Doha didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. The next morning, he went to finish the repairs on Sial's ship. The engine core was almost fully healed. One more treatment, and she would be free to leave. He tried not to think about what that meant. Sial was waiting for him when he arrived. She looked different today, more relaxed, almost peaceful. "Thank you for last night," she said. "I did not expect to enjoy it." Yuna has that effect on people. It was not just Yuna, Sial hesitated. It was you. You make things easier. Doha felt his heart skip. I do. Do not let it go to your head, little human. He smiled and started working on the engine. The repairs went smoothly. By midday, the core was glowing bright and strong, fully healed. Done, Doha said, stepping back. She's ready to fly. Sial placed her hand on the engine core. The ship hummed in response, recognizing its pilot. For a moment, she looked almost sad. You have my gratitude, she said formally. You have done what many said was impossible. It wasn't impossible, just difficult. That seems to be your specialty. Before Doha could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed. A mechanical voice announced, "Security breach. All civilians proceed to evacuation points. This is not a drill." Doha's communicator buzzed. It was Yuna. "Doha, where are you?" "Diplomatic wing, what's happening?" "Pirates, they've boarded the station. They're heading for the diplomatic quarters." Her voice was shaking. "They want hostages." The call cut out. Sial was already moving. She grabbed a weapon from a hidden compartment in her ship, a curved blade that hummed with energy. Her golden eyes had gone hard and cold. "Stay here," she ordered. "Lock the ship." "I'm not hiding while my sister is in danger." "You are not a fighter." "No, but I know this station better than anyone." Doha's jaw was set. "I can help." Sial looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded once. "Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say." They moved through the corridors together. The station was chaos. People running, screaming, trying to reach evacuation pods. Doha guided Sial through maintenance tunnels and back passages, avoiding the main routes where the pirates would be. "How many?" Sial asked. Doha checked his communicator. Security feeds were still working. 20, maybe 30, armed, professional. "Targets?" "The diplomatic wing. Ambassador Ran, you," he paused. "Anyone valuable." Sial's scales darkened with anger. "They dare." They reached the diplomatic quarters. Bodies lay in the corridor. Security guards shot down before they could respond. Doha felt sick, but he kept moving. Inside the main hall, they found them. 15 pirates, heavily armed, surrounding a group of hostages. Ran was there, his elegant robe stained with blood from a cut on his forehead. Yuna was there too, pressed against the wall with other station staff. Doha's heart stopped when he saw his sister's terrified face. The pirate leader was a scarred man with cybernetic eyes. He was speaking into a communicator, making demands. When he saw Sial in the doorway, he smiled. "The dragon herself, perfect. Your bounty just doubled our profit." Sial stepped forward. "Let the hostages go. I will come quietly." "I don't think so. I think I'll keep them as insurance." The leader gestured to his men. "Kill one. Show her we're serious." A pirate raised his weapon toward Yuna. Doha didn't think, he ran. He tackled the pirate from the side, knocking the weapon away. The shot went wild, hitting the ceiling. Someone screamed. Then Sial was there, a blur of scales and fury, her blade singing through the air. The fight was brief and brutal. Sial was a force of nature, faster and stronger than anything Doha had ever seen. Pirates fell around her like leaves in a storm. But there were too many. A shot hit Doha in the shoulder. He went down hard, pain exploding through his body. His blood spread across the floor. Sial saw him fall. Something changed in her. Her eyes went from cold to blazing. A sound came from her throat, something between a roar and a scream. It was ancient and terrible, a sound that had no place in a civilized universe. In Dracari culture, there was a concept called bloodfire. It happened when a warrior saw their chosen one harmed. It unlocked something primal, something beyond conscious control. Sial burned. What happened next, Doha only saw in pieces through a haze of pain. Sial moving like death itself. Pirates screaming. The leader trying to run and not making it 3 steps. When it was over, she was kneeling beside him, her hands pressed to his wound. Her scales were splattered with blood that wasn't hers. Her golden eyes were wild. "Stay with me," she said. Her voice was shaking. "Stay with me, little human, do not leave." "I'm okay," Doha managed. "It's just a scratch." "You are a terrible liar." Yuna appeared, pressing medical supplies to his wound. "He'll be fine. The shot missed anything vital. But Sial, what was that? What happened to you?" Sial didn't answer. She just stayed beside Doha, holding his hand until the medics arrived. Later in the medical bay, Doha woke to find Sial sitting in a chair beside his bed. She hadn't left. According to the nurses, she had threatened anyone who tried to move her. Ambassador Rand stood in the doorway, a strange expression on his face. "Sister," he said formally, "you invoked bloodfire." "I did not mean to." "It does not matter, the consequence is the same." He looked at Doha, then back at Sial. "You have chosen him in front of witnesses." Sial's scales flushed dark. "Ran. I am happy for you." He smiled, genuine and warm. "I will inform the homeworld of your claim. Rest now, both of you." He left. Doha looked at Sial. "What does that mean, claim?" Sial was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "In Dracari culture, bloodfire only happens for a mate, someone chosen at the deepest level." She met his eyes. "My body recognized you before my mind did." Oh, Doha's brain was struggling to process this. "So what, married?" "Not exactly, but close." She reached out and touched his face, gentle despite her claws. "If you do not want this, I will release you. I will not force anything." Doha thought about his life, the loneliness, the machines, the feeling of never fitting anywhere. Then he thought about Sial, her strength, her vulnerability, the way she made him feel seen. "I want this," he said quietly. "I want you." Sial's expression softened into something he had never seen before. It was love, raw and new and terrifying. "Then rest, my chosen one," she said. "We have much to discuss when you are healed." Doha closed his eyes, Sial's hand in his. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. 6 weeks passed after the pirate attack. Doha's shoulder healed slowly, leaving a small scar that Yuna said made him look mysterious. He didn't feel mysterious. He felt confused and overwhelmed and strangely happy. Everything had changed. The attack on Gemini 7 made news across both human and Dracari space. A lone Dracari warrior, defending human civilians against overwhelming odds. The story spread like fire. Politicians talked about strengthening ties between species. News programs played footage of the aftermath. Suddenly, everyone was interested in human-Dracari relations. Ambassador Rand used the attention wisely. He proposed a new joint security initiative, with Dracari warriors stationed on human outposts and human engineers working on Dracari vessels. It would require someone to lead the Dracari side, someone with combat experience and a proven ability to work with humans. Everyone knew who he meant. Sial was offered a permanent position on Gemini 7 as head of Joint Security Operations. It was a promotion in every way that mattered. More authority, more resources, more importance. But it also meant staying in human space, permanently. Doha didn't ask her about it. He didn't want to pressure her. This was her decision, her life, her career. He had no right to influence it. So he threw himself back into work. He repaired machines. He trained new technicians. He pretended that everything was normal, even though nothing was normal anymore. Sial kept her distance. She attended meetings, handled official business, spoke to important people. When they saw each other in corridors, she nodded politely. Nothing more. It hurt more than Doha expected. "You're being an idiot," Yuna said one evening, watching her brother stare at the wall instead of eating dinner. "Talk to her." "She's busy. She's avoiding you." "Same thing." Yuna threw a piece of bread at his head. "It is not the same thing. She invoked bloodfire for you. She literally went full dragon to save your life. And now you're both just sitting around being sad. This is ridiculous." "What am I supposed to say? Please stay on the station for me. Give up your chance to go home." "Yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to say." Doha shook his head. "I can't ask her to give up everything." "You're not asking her to give up everything. You're asking her to choose something. That's different." Yuna leaned forward. "Do you know why she's avoiding you? Because she's scared. She made this big, dramatic declaration in the middle of a fight, and now she doesn't know if you actually want her or if you were just caught up in the moment." "I do want her." "Then tell her that, you fool." Doha looked at his sister. She was right. He knew she was right. But the thought of walking up to Sial, the decorated war veteran, the giant dragon woman, and telling her he wanted her to stay, it terrified him. What if she says no? Then at least you'll know, and she'll know you fought for her. Yuna's voice softened. She spent her whole life being strong for everyone else. Maybe she needs someone to be strong for her. That night Doha couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. The broken ship that brought her into his life. The hours spent together in the engine room. The dinner. The fight. The way she had looked at him in the medical bay. She had called him her chosen one. Did she still feel that way? The next morning, Doha went to find her. Sial's quarters were in the diplomatic wing, larger than most rooms on the station. He stood outside her door for 5 minutes before finally pressing the chime. The door opened immediately, like she had been waiting. Sial stood there in simple clothes, her scales dull with exhaustion. She looked surprised to see him. "Doha, can I come in?" She stepped aside without a word. Her quarters were sparse and military. A bed, a desk, a few Drakari artifacts on shelves. The stone she had given him, he realized, had probably come from a collection just like this. "I heard about the job offer," he said, because he didn't know how else to start. "Head of Joint Security." "Yes." "It's a good opportunity." "Yes." Doha took a breath. This was harder than fixing any engine. "Are you going to take it?" Sial was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. "The position requires me to stay on this station indefinitely, away from Drakari space, away from my people." "I know. My mother has asked me to come home. She says I have done enough, that it is time to find a proper mate and continue our bloodline." Sial's claws flexed. A Drakari mate, someone appropriate. Something cold settled in Doha's chest. "I understand." "Do you?" Sial finally looked at him. Her golden eyes were bright with something he couldn't identify. "Do you understand that I have spent 6 weeks trying to convince myself to leave? That every night I tell myself it would be easier to go home and forget this ever happened?" Doha didn't know what to say. "But I cannot forget." Sial stepped closer to him. "I cannot forget the way you speak to machines like friends. I cannot forget the way you listened when I had nothing but complaints. I cannot forget your blood on my hands and the terror I felt at losing you." "Sial, I am a warrior. I have faced armies without flinching, but the thought of leaving you," her voice cracked just slightly, "it breaks something in me." Doha reached out and took her hand. Her scales were warm against his skin. Then don't leave. It is not that simple. Why not? Because I need to know that you want this. Sial's grip tightened. Not because you feel obligated, not because of bloodfire or Drakari customs. I need to know that you, Kang Doha, want me here, with you. Doha looked up at her. She was so much taller than him, so much stronger. But in that moment she seemed fragile. I don't know how Drakari do this, he said quietly. But humans, we ask, so I'm asking. He swallowed hard. Will you stay, not for duty, not for politics, for this, for us? Sial stared at him. Then slowly she smiled. It was the first real smile he had ever seen from her. It transformed her face, made her look young and hopeful and beautiful. Yes, she said, I will stay. Doha pulled her down and kissed her. It was awkward. He had to stand on his toes, and she had to bend nearly in half. Her scales were strange against his lips. Neither of them really knew what they were doing. It was perfect. 6 months later, life on Gemini 7 had settled into a new normal. Sial ran the Joint Security Division with the same intensity she brought to everything. Pirates learned quickly to avoid stations under her protection. Human and Drakari worked together, learning from each other. Doha was still a mechanic, still happiest with his hands inside an engine. But now he came home to someone who understood him, someone who brought him coffee when he forgot to eat, someone who scared away anyone who bothered him during work. They had their challenges, cultural differences, communication mishaps, the occasional argument about whether Doha was taking care of himself properly. But they worked through it together. Yuna took full credit for everything. I brought them together, she told anyone who would listen. I'm basically a matchmaker. Ambassador Rand sent regular reports to their mother on the Drakari homeworld. He included pictures when he could. One day a message came back. It was from their mother, addressed to Sial. I have seen the human you have chosen. He is small, but you are happy. That is enough for me. Sial read the message 3 times. Then she showed it to Doha, who didn't know whether to be relieved or insulted by being called small. Your mother knows about us. Rand tells her everything. Is she okay with this? Sial pulled him into her arms, resting her chin on top of his head. She is okay. You are family now. Family? Doha had never had much of that beyond Yuna. Now he had a sister who loved him, a terrifying mother-in-law on another planet, a brother-in-law who was an ambassador, and a mate who could probably bench press a shuttle. It was strange, it was wonderful. That evening, Doha was working on a new ship when Sial appeared in the engine room. She stood in her old spot by the door, arms crossed, watching him work. You're starring, he said without looking up. I like watching you. That's creepy. You are creepy, you talk to machines. Doha smiled and kept working. Sial kept watching. The ship hummed around them, alive in content. Somewhere in the distance, stars burned in the endless dark. And in a small engine room on a station at the edge of space, 2 lonely souls had found each other. They had found home,